So, as I say, you're in the parish of Broadford, but when I say Broadford, we've got to remember that's just almost a modern construct. It's only there maybe 200 years. It's a Catholic parish, but it's an amalgamation of two medieval or civil parishes called Kilsylie and Killickennedy. So Kilsylie is off here, to my right, to your left, which is this side of the parish, and you can see the Great Clare Plain extending off there, off into the distance. And on the other side of the valley then you have the ancient valley of Glenomra, which was part of the civil parish of Killickennedy. So Broadford is an amalgamation of two civil parishes, Kilsylie and Killickennedy. In 1841, the parish of Broadford had a population of 8,200 people. Within 3 years of the famine, within 2 years of the famine being over, it had a population of 4,200, a drop of 4,000 people. That population dropped through immigration, etc. Migration continued right through until modern times, and I'd say our parish now, and PJ can correct me on this, would be maybe in excess of maybe 800 to 900 people. So the parish you're looking at today is a very different parish to what was here in previous times. So again, important place to note would be Broadford Village, which got its charter from King Charles in 1627. Very soon we're going to be hitting a huge commemoration hopefully down there. So, and again, just to say, Broadford Village, when it was built, and this is maybe again difficult now to believe, was almost on Doon Lake. When you came in by Doon, any of you that drove past Doon Lake today, the landscape you're looking at is very different than what it was in famine times. After the famine period, they had what was called the 6 Mile Bridge drainage scheme, which dropped the river, the O'Garney, the Broadford River, dropped the level of Doon Lake, so that when formerly Broadford was a crossing point, all Lehan crossing the Broadford River, now it's a mile upriver from the lake. So that we're looking at the landscape very much today. There have been significant changes over the centuries. Now we're going to start today maybe with one of the earlier sites, and that is Fermyle megalithic tomb here. Well, just to say again, and I'm going to be covering very much landscape today, when we look out at Broadford, and people travel today through two very important routes, or traditionally important routes, on through Broadford to O'Brien's Bridge on towards Dublin. That was the main route for traffic from Innis towards Dublin in previous centuries. Also, the gap leading out here to past Fermyle from Broadford to Limerick, they were very important routes. But just to remember that in previous millennia, all of the valley floor was either flooded or wooded and inaccessible. So you had the bare hills here on top, a place like Fermyle, the bare place, the bare hill. Yeah, yeah. So you didn't have trees on the hillsides, so consequently you had people living on the hillsides. So all around the hills in Broadford, you have a wonderful range of megalithic tombs similar to the one here. And various names are used, even the wedge-shaped tomb. Dolmen was very popular. I think this one was normally referred to as Fermyle Dolmen. Cromlech's, Diarmid and Gráinne's bed. And so they were built by a stone, people using in the Stone Age, and I know many people of the group here today are very familiar, maybe more familiar with that archaeology than I am. But they were from people that were actually still using stone implements. And it's fascinating to think that we are here today, that continuity, if you like, that where we are standing today, there were people here in the Stone Age, a pastoral people, eking out a subsistence living here on the hillsides. And that's one of the finer ones of those that are remaining. There's further examples all over the hill. Artskey, Violet Hill, beautiful one at Ballykelly. Not so much beautiful in terms of its survival, the way that it's intact, but a magnificent view out over Doon Lake. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the archaeology of the megalithic tomb, where you had the vertical side stones and the huge capstone on top. And researchers tell us that normally that they had a cairn or a tumulus heap of stones around the megalith.
Okay, yeah.
And would say the research that's been done today, it seems to prove that there were places of burial where the bodies were cremated and placed in urns within the tomb. Occasionally there have been reports in Broadford going back in the last 2 centuries of people doing digs around him looking for lost treasure, because very often they're associated with treasure, but of course all you will ever find close to one of those are maybe very simple stone artefacts. So this one here is Fermile Dolmen, and it's one of many the PG could have taken you today, but as a Fermile man he came local.
Well, Pat, we thank you for that, and we'll speak later again.
Okay.
Okay. You're very welcome here. I'm very interested in this wedge tomb here in Fermile. What do you see here as you look at that now for the first time, Zena?
Well, I suppose, PJ, what I see first is I see quite a long wedge tomb. Sometimes they can be shorter, so this is probably what they call a sort of gallery type wedge tomb. And I mean, what you're looking at here is you're looking at the side stones on which the capstones would be positioned and balanced on top. So you actually have 2 capstones here.
Okay.
And it's pretty disturbed, so maybe this wall has been added to over here, but the capstones are on this, and it looks like the wedge tomb opens out in this direction, out to the southwest, which would be a very typical type of form for it, a typical plan of a wedge tomb, always towards the setting sun.
Yes.
You know, so there'd be connections with astronomical and things like that, you know, seasons. So tombs like this would date back into the late Neolithic and the early Bronze Age.
Okay.
So they're sort of bordering those 2 ages.
We're talking about 4,000,
We're talking about 4,500 years ago up to about 2,500 years ago. So it's very hard. You can't date it unless there was excavation here.
Okay. Yeah.
So what happens is they're the smallest of the megalithic tombs, and as I said, they're at the end of that tomb building period. And they're very much connected with local farming communities. You know, you can see they become smaller. They're not like the big Newgrange type or the Dolmen at Poundnabrone. They're much smaller. And they're usually connected with a farming population in
local
the area.
settlements.
So like, you know, this landscape is very fertile, and we're on the hills around Broadford.
Okay.
So this would have been exactly the sort of land that they would have been farming at that time. So when the people, there'd be probably multiple burials within the wedge tomb. Sometimes burnt, cremated, sometimes unburnt, and the bodies will be placed within the tomb.
Okay.
And then sometimes those tombs are covered by cairns of stones as well. So the cairn is gone, denuded at this stage. People take them to build walls, whatever they might, you know, thrown around the walls here. And what we're getting here is just the remains of that time, but dating back to, you know, into prehistory.
Okay.
So connected to a lot of other tombs. That
and do we know what age these people would have achieved in?
Unless you're excavating, but I mean, generally there was big excavations up at Poundnabrone in the Burren, and the average age is kind of in their 30s. The oldest person being 40, maybe, and a lot of children were in that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Hard life.
That's
Hard life.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm glad that you're here today, and thank you very much.
You're very welcome.